That same day that her affair was now known by police, she searched for the phrase, "Can cops trace text messages? How long do..."
No. Oh, she is dumb. Oh, she is so dumb. But thank God she kind of is, because we would not have known this stuff if she wasn't. Maniacs, welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, I encourage you all to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you guys want to see more content like this. I have decided we are going to go ahead and dive into this whole Nichole Kessinger stuff, the Chris Watts mistress, and all the red flags video. If you want to see more content like this where I just watch this stuff, give you my thoughts and opinions, then by all means, yeah, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, show a lot of support and love. And of course, we're going to go ahead and dive into it. But first, I want to say I really appreciate a lot of YouTubers kind of doing stuff like this, like trying to reopen cases that there might be some injustices to. And I encourage that from time to time. Not really sure if this is going to make a giant impact on this whole subject, but if it does at the end of the day, then that's all that matters. I really don't know a whole lot about the Nichole Kessinger stuff, besides the fact that there could be the possibility Nichole Kessinger was involved in some way, shape, or form with the murder of Shanann and her 2 little kids, which, yeah, crazy. And if she is still not being targeted or viewed as somebody who was involved, that is an issue, especially if there's a lot of evidence that shows she could have been actually involved. So I'm gonna play it, give you guys my thoughts, and I'll tell you guys what I think during and after the video.
Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Annie Elise, and this is 10 to Life, where we talk all things true crime. So if you are brand new and checking out this video and channel for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy it. And for all of my returning 10 to Lifers, welcome back, and thank you as always for your continued support. Today, we are going back.
I will say, diving into the true crime stuff is a big risky thing, because there are a lot of people in this world who are sincerely passionate about trying to give justice where justice wasn't served. And you got to think, these are people's lives that were lost. I just wanted to get that out there. I apologize. Let's go ahead and continue.
Back to Watts Island. And don't say it. I know, before you guys say anything, trust me. I promised myself that I would never go back to Watts Island. I made a vow to myself that I wouldn't. But some new information has surfaced. There are some things that a lot of you have been requesting that we talk about. So we're going back there. And I am making a vow again to myself that this will be the final time we talk about this monster. But there have been, again, as I mentioned, some new developments, a new video released that maybe you have heard about, and a lot of you guys have been requesting that I share my thoughts. So here we are. And
I appreciate
it's not about Chris Watts himself. It is about Nichole Kessinger.
The only other video I have done that involved this entire case was the paranormal videos that involved the house, and how there's a possibility that their spirits could be actually at the house. If you don't know me, I do a lot of paranormal reactions, and I have a big passion for the paranormal. But people have been wanting me to dive more into the true crime stuff, and this is something that I've already kind of started with those videos. So I just want to get a better understanding of what really went down and why their spirits could be trapped there.
His mistress. Many of you may have heard about or seen the latest video that was released of Nichole Kessinger's interview with police, whereas before we only...
No, I'm sorry, I keep pausing it. I did react to the body language video where there's like a body language specialist who was watching every move she made during her interview and her questioning, and she did some unsettling kind of odd things in that interview that really would make anybody look suspicious.
We had audio, and some of it was just bits and pieces. We now have video to go along with it, and it's pretty telling in my opinion. For those who are unfamiliar, not that I think there are many of you who are not familiar with this case, but just in case, Nichole Kessinger was Chris Watts' mistress, and many have suspected for years that she did have some sort of a level of involvement in what happened to Chris's wife Shanann, Cece, Bella, and their unborn son Nico.
That is so, you see, this is... You see like a beautiful family right there, right? That's why it's so, I think, shocking and heartbreaking to a lot of people, is that look at their smiles. They look so genuine. They look so happy. I couldn't like picture in my mind why somebody would do this. to me, just looking at this picture, breaks my heart even more. Not because it's a beautiful picture of a family, but it's the fact of the matter is it ended the way it ended. Like, why? Why do that shit? This is...
Now, Shanann's family has said on various occasions that they, of course, have more information and know more than the public knows. Absolutely. And they have said that they believe Chris is solely responsible for the murders. I absolutely respect that, and I respect that family and what they have gone through immensely. My personal opinion is that there are just far too many inconsistencies, deleted messages, deleted calls, deleted search histories, and too many shady coincidences for her not to be involved or have some sort of level of insight as to what was going to happen. So today I'm going to be pointing out key inconsistencies, blatant lies, and things that really just don't add up between Nichole's police interview and the fact-based discovery that we went through. So this video will be fact-based with footage of her interview and with direct information from the 2,000 pages of discovery, which I read start to finish. It took me several hours, but it was very telling. So it's not going to be all these conspiracy theories in this video. It's not going to be conspiracy theory driven, and you'll be able to really assess the information yourself and make your determination of her involvement from there, whether she was or wasn't involved. So guys, let's get into it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate, there's people who actually take the time to genuinely just go over all the details, and I truly have a profound appreciation for people like that, because my mind, I do love to do research sometimes, but I really have a hard time staying focused, so I could not do something like this. So I just appreciate what you've done.
Tend to Life with Annie Elise starts right now.
On August 16th, 2018, Nichole gives another interview with police. This took place 5 days after the murders of Chris Watts' family. To me, she seems extremely frustrated or somewhat annoyed at the line of questioning in this interview, and the fact that she has to really be there at all. She just seems agitated by it. Her behavior and attitude doesn't quite strike me as someone who is distraught or wanting to be overly helpful. Her dad also attended this interview with her, and occasionally he would share his opinion or advise her when to share hers or not. So rather than go through the entire 3.5-hour interview with you, which would just take so long, I'm going to break down the key highlights in which I believe are red flags because they don't align with the evidence from the discovery and or because of the statement or behavior behind the statement.
Your relationship with Chris and what you know about Chris and his family and events relating to Chris Watts.
Nichole said that after meeting Chris in June 2018, she didn't know Shanann's name right away and that she didn't know it for a while.
He mentioned that he did have a significant other, and then he told me that those two were in the process of a separation.
Did he mention the children's name or his significant other's name?
I didn't know his significant other's name for a while.
Now, if this were true, and if she truly didn't know Shanann's name and didn't learn of it until well after meeting Chris and starting their affair, how is it possible that she was searching for Shanann and using her specific name in those searches dating much earlier?
Yeah, I don't buy that. Why? First off, if you are cheating on somebody, what's the big craziness of just telling the other person's name? More than likely, this Chris probably vented to her a lot about Shanann, so I'm sure she heard the name, regardless. But yeah, that is questionable. She said she didn't know, but there she is, apparently with search history of Shanann. Okay, so that kind of just topples that whole thing. Okay, well, that's not a great start to this.
Because police found that she had been searching Google for Chris Watts as early as August 3rd, 2017, and searching Shanann Watts back in January 2018. Now, originally, there were reports that she was searching Shanann back in 2017 at around the same time that she was searching Chris's name. However, it then was disclosed that it was a typo, but there were proven police.
A typo? They said it was proven as a typo? Really?
Search histories that showed that she was searching Shanann in January of 2018. So how can you do that if you didn't learn of her name until over 6 months later,
She
as
knew.
you're claiming?
She knew.
Nichole then states that she and Chris go on their first date around her birthday to a local park, and this takes place around the end of June, early July. Nichole tells police that right before Father's Day, Chris told her that he had kids, which she apparently thought was really cute, and he also told her that he was separated from his wife.
Oh, yeah.
But here's what's different. On Father's Day, which was June 17th in 2018, so around this time that they went on their first date, Shanann wrote a public tribute on.
Sorry, I am sorry. I gotta put my glasses on. Chris, we are so incredibly blessed to have you. You do so much every day for us and take such great care of us. You are the reason I was brave enough to agree to number 3, from laundry to kids, showers. You are incredible, and we are so lucky to have you in our life. Happy Father's Day. So she was pregnant, right, when she was murdered? I think, is what I've heard. She was pregnant.
On her Facebook to Chris about Father's Day. And we know that Nichole was searching her and watching her Facebook, so she would easily see this and know that they in fact are not separating, negating her claim that she was under the impression that they were mutually divorcing this entire time. So Nichole then becomes frustrated with the officer asking her these questions, and she actually talks over him, saying that she can't remember details and just becomes frustrated.
Anything like that, if he ever made any kind of statements that you were like, whoa, that was weird, or why would he say that, or why did he mention that? Do you understand what I'm looking for?
No, I completely understand. I just feel like some of this happened so long ago that
That is a terrible excuse. Happened so long ago. Yeah, her tone kind of gives it away.
I can't tell you like the exact words of the exact conversation at the exact time and place, because it's like we had a lot of conversations. I mean, we talked every single day. So
if there's
like I'm trying to help you guys with the stuff like the stuff that's more current. I can give you guys a lot more like detail and exact times. But when you're asking me about something that happened 6 weeks ago and exactly what was said, it's like, I mean, I'm sure I can give you a general idea, but to be honest with you, like to pinpoint exact words, it's not going to happen.
I'm not looking for exact words, just more, let's say 6 weeks ago he said something that triggered with you last night. That's what I'd be looking for. Or something 4 weeks ago. And if you don't remember where it was or the specific words, that doesn't matter. Just he said something that was off the wall, or he said this or he said that, that has caused you a moment to pause and you go, wow, I wonder why he said that.
You see,
Now,
the issue is, it's like if she actually or he actually said anything, why delete the messages, right? If you had nothing to hide. The only reason why you delete the messages is if he was talking to you about something that was more dark and maybe that no one else should have seen, and that would be the only reason why you'd want to delete your messages. I guess I could make the argument that maybe she was just worried someone would think that, or like someone would see the messages and see, hey, you're cheating on, like you're hitting on like a married guy, you need to back off or something. Maybe that's why she deleted the messages, but it looks like, did she delete all the messages or just specific messages?
knowing
We'll
what
find
you know
out, I'm
today.
sure.
Do you understand where I'm going with that?
In my opinion there, she doesn't seem to be this deer in the headlights, overly concerned mistress that she was trying to portray herself as. Then the detective starts to tell Nichole that he does have information that he can't share with her, which is normal, especially in these interviews. They say, we have a lot more information, but we can't tell you that because we don't want to jeopardize the investigation, and because they want to know if she's going to be forthcoming with the information or not. So he tells her this, that he has this info, but that he can't share it with her. And she gets visibly nervous. She ends up grabbing her water to take a drink as she's nervous.
She does that a lot, I've noticed. When I did the body language interview, she was actually, she actually did do that a lot. She was, taking swigs of her water constantly.
And this is an action that I noticed quite a few times during the course of this interview. Anytime she felt uncomfortable or there was a question or a statement made that made her somewhat nervous, she would grab her bottle of water, hold it, and then take a drink, almost kind of like a tell, personally, in my opinion, but almost as though she was trying to take a second to like think how she was going to react or to like take her mind off of it. It was just very interesting to me.
Although it was short, just laying everything out helps us understand what actually was going on with him. And I might ask you a question and you're going, why the heck would he ask me that? Probably because I have information that I'm not willing to share with you, and I'll tell you that right now. I'm not going to tell you. Some questions I'm going to ask you, and you go, what the heck? I won't share some information with you. Just, it protects you, it protects our investigation. So if it seems weird, there's a reason I'm asking it,
That's
and
fine.
it's usually relative to what I know. So don't take offense to it. Again, it's just part of what we need to know.
Understood.
So then they start talking about her phone and collecting the data from that. And she responds in a really weird way, guys. She says, I feel like this situation is crazy, regardless whether I give you my phone or not. And then her dad kind of interrupts and says, well, if you do, it's just going to reiterate everything that you've already said, as though he already knew what was on her phone and perhaps knew what she at this point had already deleted off of her phone. So when he says this, then Nichole responds and says, yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of a good backup. A good backup? I mean, maybe she was meaning it was just going to reinforce what her statement to the detective was, but something about this part of the conversation just doesn't sit right with me.
I forgot about that.
For TPD.
It's not for them. They're doing it for us.
Yes.
We don't have the equipment with us to do it, and I asked them to do it for us. They're not involved in this investigation. He would just be a computer person. He would not be looking at any of this stuff. That would fall to myself. So keep that in mind. He's not involved in this investigation. Thornton PD has nothing to do with this, other than letting us use their facility and helping us with some electronic download. He's not going to look at your phone right now. He's going to put it on a disc and they're going to give it to me.
Gotcha. I don't know anything. I really want to help you guys. I do. I feel like this whole thing is just going to be crazy regardless of whether I give you my phone or not. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it.
It's not a good way to look at it. It makes you look like you're hiding stuff on your phone and you're worried they're going to be able to bring something back up to the light, and you probably don't want to risk that. She's acting nervous in all the ways that you would probably expect somebody who's guilty to act, right? That's kind of what I'm getting off of this. She's trying to make up excuses why she doesn't want to do it, but no, I want to help you guys, I really do, but I really don't think it's going to make much of a difference. And it's just like, at that point, you're like, oh my God. Like, if you had nothing to hide, you would just give them the phone without any problems whatsoever. Without any problems whatsoever. But the issue is, you're holding your phone and you're trying to make excuses. Yeah, it makes you look guilty.
Like, it's happening. It's going to happen.
Well, the texts
Media is just
reiterate what
gonna-
you've been saying all along, so it's not like.
Well, they do. That's the other thing, too. I mean, that's kind of a good backup. Yeah.
So after she goes back and forth with this detective about giving them the phone so that they can go through her photo history, her text history, her call logs, which it took quite a bit of persuading from the detective. Like, it went on for almost 10 minutes. She finally signs the paper and agrees to turn it over. And then she tells police that there's nothing else than what is on her phone and that everything is there. Even though at this point, she had deleted so much already, which we're going to get to in a little bit.
His photos that he sent to you?
Well, they'll be in that text message thing.
So all his photos were sent. There was no apps or anything else you used that you guys were sending. It was all just text messages.
Yeah,
Okay. So it'd be an attachment to a text that he sent you.
pretty much.
But
Everything is in the text and the phone call records.
Nichole also says that she didn't learn about Shanann's pregnancy until the newspaper reported
she was,
it
okay.
and the news aired about Shanann missing and Chris gave that infamous interview. However, computer records from the discovery show that Nichole, again,
God, this is sick. Killing a pregnant woman with her other two kids.
frequented Shanann's Facebook page, where Shanann not only had made that public tribute for Father's Day, but she also announced her pregnancy and made frequent updates about her family. And all of these posts were public.
prior to turning the tape on Tuesday, which would have been the 14th of August, you had read some newspaper articles on the 13th and the 14th that regarded this case. You had also had a conversation with Chris at some point during the day on Monday. And on Tuesday, because of what you found, specifically what you said was, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but you found out that his wife was pregnant.
Yes.
And you did not know that prior, and you found that out via the newspaper articles, and that caused you concern.
Well, I just realized that he was lying to me, and I was like, well, if you can lie to me about this, what else are you lying to me about? And it made me realize that maybe his wife was in danger at that point, and it was day two, and she still wasn't home.
And there is another piece of information that we learn that indicates she knew about the pregnancy, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Nichole then says that the second day of
So she read a newspaper article that stated that she was pregnant, and that's when she, I guess, found out that she was pregnant.
Shanann being missing is when she decides to stop talking to Chris, saying he was far too casual about the whole thing. I stopped talking to him because I didn't feel good about it. So she tells the detective, On the second day, I cut Chris off.
That's why I gave him the benefit of the doubt for the first day, because I was just like, no way. Like, I didn't even think about that. I mean, murder was not on the top of my mind when somebody doesn't come home for an evening, especially if they've just, like, had some sort of, like, heated conversation. It's like, okay, you guys are separating, you have a heated conversation, you leave for a night. Like, I didn't even think this guy killed his wife. I mean, that like, murder is on something on the top of my mind when I call one of my friends for 3 or 4 hours and she doesn't answer the phone. Like, that doesn't even process to me as, like, a real thing that is a possibility at that point. And so that's why I gave it a day, and then the second day I was talking to him, he was just, like, a hot mess, I could tell. And then with, like, the way he was talking to me, and then that's kind of when I cut him off and I stopped talking to him.
But her final call with Chris was actually when she was suspected to have been listening in on a call that he had with detectives, which, again, we'll get into in a bit here when we start going through the discovery and the timeline and sequence of events. As the detective is asking Nichole about the seriousness of she and Chris's relationship, Nichole says that she had no intentions of even moving in with Chris, and that she made it extremely clear to Chris all the time that she wanted to take things very slowly and have separate lives until the time was right.
Apartment wasn't for you and him. It was just for him and
Okay, but this is a married guy, and she's aware that this is a married guy. And she still found it okay to talk like this to him? This is weird, man. This is like, her mindset is a bit fucked.
his children.
Oh, yes.
It was, you had no intentions of moving in with him.
No, I have my own spot. I still have a lease there till July, and even then, like, he never asked me to move in with him,
Okay.
and I never tried to move in with him. I mean, I told him, I really try to take everything with this whole situation very slow. The only part that I screwed up on was the fact that he wasn't completely separated from her when him and I decided to spend time with each other. That is where I screwed up. But other than that, everything else, it was always like, you know, you build your life, I'm going to build my life, we will intertwine them, but I am not ready to, like, do this. And he respected that. And I even said that, and I don't know, that might be in the text, but said that too, where it's like, Chris, like, you need space. Like, you're just getting out of a divorce. Like, personally, I think jumping into a new relationship is a little quick. It's like, I was in a relationship earlier this year, and I think this is also a little quick. And I'm like, so why don't we take our time? And I'm like, if you guys end up doing a week on, a week off with your kids, I'm like, the week you have your kids.
So she kind of influenced Chris to divorce. Is this true? Did he actually divorce his wife? People comment in the comment section. Did he? So she influenced him to pretty much get a divorce because he found her, and then now she's like, let's take things slow. You just helped influence a guy to break up with his wife. I'm kind of confused on this whole thing. Again, this is me jumping into this without really knowing a whole lot. So, I mean, I would love it if you guys went down below and commented and gave me your own thoughts, but this is, some of the shit she's saying doesn't really add up at all.
Be with your children. And the week that you don't, I'm like, I don't even want to see you every day. I'm like, I think we should spend like a few days of that together. I'm like, because I like my space, and I think you need your space. I think you need your space to, like, develop your identity again and, like, get it back, because I think he's just been, like, so wrapped up in this whole thing that he's got in his own life and his life that he doesn't remember probably what it's like to, like, be single or have time where it's, like, just him.
Sure.
And so I was just like, like, embrace that. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I really try to, like, take it smart with all that. And it was
Okay, so tell me why you were looking at wedding dresses for over 2 hours if you wanted to take things slowly. Why Google if he would marry his mistress, which is a Google search she did, if you wanted to have separate lives and didn't plan on taking the next step. It doesn't add up.
Yeah, I want to take things slow, but here I am looking up wedding dresses and marrying your mistress.
Nichole says that she didn't talk to Chris on the phone at all that day, on that Tuesday the 14th, because she was mad at him and, again, thought that everything was too weird regarding his behavior and how casually he was acting.
texting me so much openly, and he had friends there, that I was like, I didn't want them to see that. And so I was like trying to get him to slow down. And then I told him too, like,
Yeah, think about it for a
after he
minute.
lied to me, I was just kind of like, I was done. And I was trying to find a way to, like, get away from the situation without alarming him or panicking him. So I told him, like, everything is all good, I'm still here for you, and I feel bad because, like, I lied to him, but, I mean, I, like, just try to keep him calm, and then I told him, like, contact me once they find your family.
But what is odd about that is that they talked several times in the early hours of the 14th, including when she is suspected to have listened in on that call with Chris and the detective. Clearly, they weren't in a bad place at that point, like she was trying to tell this detective. So since that was one of the last conversations between the two of them, I'm wondering, did they agree that at that point they would stop communicating because that was the final call between she and Chris?
It would
And
make
again, I'll
sense.
touch on that shortly and how that very well might be the case, that they had decided this was going to be the last phone call between them, because she also talks about a text message exchange between the two of them and how that ended abruptly. Nichole also told the detective that on that same day, on the 14th, the day after the murders, while she was at work, she texted Chris to push him to tell her what he knew about the disappearance, and she was asking what had been done, really just trying to get answers out of him. So she said that he told her that he would never hurt his family. And she tells the detective, it got to the point where he was telling me so many lies that eventually I told him I didn't want to speak to him again until his family was found or until he came clean. Then she says, that was supposed to be our final text send-off. What does that even mean? Final text send-off. Like it was planned to be their final text exchange. Who says, I was mad at him and I didn't want to talk to him anymore, so that was supposed to be our final sign-off text? It just seems really weird to say.
Me, and I think he's aware of the fact that I'm probably about to walk away from him, so I think that was like his way of like saying goodbye. So it didn't really seem strange in the context of what was going on between like the him and I part of stuff. And then, and I kept asking him too, like, what did you do, Chris? What did you do? And he was like, I didn't do anything. And I'm like, where's your family? And like, I asked him.
But didn't she just say that she would never have expected him to be like murder his family? But here she is kind of saying, what you do, Chris? What you do? Where's your family? But she said it never crossed her mind that he would even be doing this. Isn't that what she just said prior to this? Is this on the same day?
I don't know if I started doing that on Tuesday or if I started doing that on Monday, but I think it was Tuesday, because I don't really think I was that alarmed on Monday. And then, so that was supposed to be like our final sign-off text.
Then she tells the detective that she needed to bring something up to them that she forgot to tell them previously. She says that the night after everything unfolded, in one of their many phone conversations in the early hours of the 14th, Chris asked her what to do with the wedding ring that he found of Shanann's, and she told him to pawn it. Now, what person on the planet would suggest that 24 hours after his wife and kids go missing? If she truly thought that this woman and their children were just missing and would possibly return, why on earth would you suggest to pawn?
Because she knew they were dead. That is why you would say something like that, because she knew the family was not going to interfere anymore with them. If that ain't the most red flaggish shit I have heard, like just diving into this, she's already said a lot of things that would make me question anybody who would be saying stuff like this, but that really is almost like the icing on the cake. Pawn off the ring. Get it out of here.
On it. Wouldn't you say something like, keep it for when she returns home, or give it to the police as evidence, not pawn it, especially if during this entire interview you're claiming to be so upset and so distraught? It seems like a very odd statement to make just less than 24 hours after they are missing.
Strange. So another thing, so that was Tuesday, and that was it for Tuesday, but I forgot some stuff on Monday that I did need to bring up to you guys. So Monday, when we were on the phone at one point, he mentioned to me, I can't even believe I have to say this, she left her wedding ring here, and I said something along the lines of, does that mean you two are done? And he was like,
Oh.
he said, how much do you think it's worth? And I was like, remember hearing him say that and being like, what the fuck? And I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't even know how to respond to this. And so I was like, I don't know, pawn it, man. And I was just like, I I was like, I pawn jewelry all the time. I was like, I pawn jewelry a few times. I was like, it's not worth shit though. And I was like, so I don't know if you really want to do that. And he's like, no, I think I'm going to get it appraised. It's a nice rock. And I was just like, okay.
Then she goes into the discovery about the affair, and she tells the detective that she contacted the police to tell them about the affair because of how weird she was feeling with Chris's behavior. However, this, as a fact, was already after police had been informed about the affair by a supervisor at her workplace, Anadarko. In the discovery, it is detailed that on the 15th of August, before this interview took place, at 8 a.m., CBI agent Tammy Lee received a phone call from an Anadarko regional manager, and this manager informed her that they have uncovered evidence that Chris began a relationship with a coworker around June 2018. 2 hours after that call was made, at 9:50 a.m., Nichole then contacted detectives regarding her relationship with Chris Watts. And it was stated that she was tipped off that the Anadarko manager had discovered the emails revealing her affair with Chris, which is why she then took the initiative to contact the police, because she knew it was going to be exposed. And it wasn't like she wanted to be forthcoming like she would later suggest to police and share the information to help the case. She knew it was exposed. She knew the manager had the emails and had contacted police. So then she wanted to immediately call.
Sounds like she was a very paranoid individual when this was going on. Yeah, and she really wanted to make sure that she would be able to clear herself if anything were to have been said about her. Yeah, that's not a good look.
Call them and say, hey, by the way, I'm having an affair with him, as though she's doing the right thing, but she wasn't. That same day that her affair was now known by police, she searched for the phrase, can cops trace text messages?
Oh, she is dumb. Oh, she is so fucking dumb. But thank God she kind of is, because we would not have known this stuff if she wasn't. How long do phone companies keep text messages? All deleted. She deleted that too. Yeah, they can retrace that stuff. They can bring that stuff back up.
Do phone companies keep text messages? What's the difference between text message content and text message detail? And then she deleted that search. So if you're trying to, again, be forthcoming and give the police intel into your relationship with Chris because you want to share as much information as possible and help them with this investigation, why would you care if cops can trace your text messages? And even more than that, why would you delete that search and the text messages that you're so worried about them tracing? She doesn't appear to be as forthcoming as she's trying to portray. Police then asked Nichole about the phone call that was 111 minutes long the night before, technically like the night of the murders. It took place like right before midnight, and then Shanann got home at 2 a.m. And so they talked for approximately 111 minutes. Nichole said that they were FaceTiming and that she can't remember what they talked about. She said she can't remember anything they talked about for nearly...
How do you forget a conversation like that? That makes no sense to me. How do you forget a conversation? If I were to have a conversation with somebody who eventually went on to murder his family, I don't think I'd ever forget that conversation. Like, just saying. How do you forget something like that?
2 hours from just a few days earlier. It was literally 5 days earlier. You don't remember anything about a 2-hour FaceTime call you had?
What the actual fuck? Like, makes no sense whatsoever. Unless she has, like, short-term memory loss, which is a real thing, but still, I don't think I'd ever forget that.
But yet she does tell the detective that something did feel off about their conversation. So she conveniently remembers that. And she says what felt off was that Chris was lying on his bare mattress, and she thought that was weird because there were no sheets on it. But seriously, you can't remember anything else, but you remember that something was odd about his behavior. Maybe, but feels like a coincidence here. Feels like something else. And honestly, it felt like Nichole's father kind of controlled a lot of this interview. He said more than once, if Chris confesses to this and pleads guilty, basically this is the end of the case, right? It's like he knew what to ask or what to say so that Nichole wouldn't be looked into further or get in trouble for anything. And in fact, later, the district attorney's office was asked if they planned to question Nichole about the data suggesting that she was aware of Chris and Shanann for up to a year before the murders. They asked if they were going to look into those searches and to some of her text history. And the DA said that Chris's guilty plea precluded any need to further probe the results of that forensic analysis of her phone. Basically, if they got their guy, there was no need to investigate further and they could close the case. And many suspect that this is actually why Nichole's father kept asking, if Chris confesses, it'll be the end of the case, right? And also many suggest and suspect that that's why Chris confessed so quickly after he failed the polygraph test, so that he could essentially save Nichole from being implicated. So now let's talk more about the red flags according to the evidence that is outlined in the 2,000 pages of discovery and that ties back to parts of this interview. First and foremost, Nichole has no alibi for the time of the murders. Zip, zilch, zero. And she didn't clock into work until 3 p.m. that day. And not only did she not clock in until 3 p.m., but her activity while she was at work for a short period of time was kind of sketchy. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's start with the morning of the murders. The morning of the murders, a neighbor reported seeing a truck very similar to the one that Nichole owned. And the neighbor says that she saw it outside the Watts home. At that same time that this neighbor saw the truck, Nichole's phone pinged a tower in Frederick, Colorado, where the Watts family home was, and it pinged at 6:16 a.m. But Nichole lived 25 minutes away. And what's interesting is when they FaceTimed the night earlier for that 111-minute FaceTime, it pinged at her house, not in Frederick. So if it was an error ping or an accident, why wouldn't that FaceTime have also pinged closer to Chris's house and not at the same location that her phone always pings when she's at her house? And here is why I also believe that she was near Chris's home that morning. So that ping happened at 6:16 a.m. Now, she didn't make any other calls that day until 2:26 p.m. that afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. I'm okay. Okay. Well, there's a lot here. Okay. I mean, testimony from the neighbor saying that her truck was outside, or a truck that looked like her truck was outside the house. I mean, at this point, I'm beginning to truly see why people are saying she definitely had something to do with the murders of Shanann and her kids. This shit is so insane and so questionable. I didn't expect like a lot of this to be dropped. I was expecting, we were just gonna be theorizing and stuff. No, that's a lot. I'm almost surprised it was dropped because it's so much. Even a neighbor, an eyewitness, said they saw her truck outside the house. What the f?
However, her entire phone history was in the discovery. And when you analyze it, I went through it page by page, line by line. When you analyze her phone history, you can see that every single day she makes at least one phone call per hour. She never has a gap like she did on that day from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. without making any calls. That, along with no alibi, leads me to believe it's because she knew that she messed up by using her phone that morning and then stopped for the remainder of the day until she got to her office around 2 p.m. Because her phone shows that the next call took place at 2:26 p.m., which is right before she made two other calls from her office at 2:28 p.m. and 2:35 p.m., which we also will talk about more here shortly. In addition to that, I decided to look further into her phone records to say, okay, could it just be a fluke? Maybe it did just coincidentally ping there. Maybe it was an error. I looked at her phone records all the way until mid-September, over a month later, and never once did her phone ping again in that same area as it did the morning of the murders at 6:16 a.m. So what are the chances of it never pinging there again if it truly was a tech error or accident? It seems more likely that it never pinged there again because she, in fact, never went to the Watts house again. Something else that doesn't sit right with me is that Chris and Nichole met at Anadarko, the same place where Chris went to hide the bodies of his wife and children that morning. And as a safety officer, Nichole knew tons of information about these sites. the sites that Chris worked at, and the sites that he went to dispose of their bodies. So it is absolutely possible that she helped him as he plotted all of this with where to go to dispose of the bodies. As mentioned, Nichole has no alibi for that morning. All we know about is the phone ping that morning and that she did clock out of work at 3 p.m. right after making 2 phone calls from the office, one at 2:28 p.m. and another at 2:35 p.m. And those phone calls were to her spiritual advisor, a 73-year-old man named Robert of the Ordo Templi Orientis. And one of the major features and core teachings of this organization that her spiritual advisor, is part of and that she called that day is the practice of sex magic. And similar to many secret societies, the membership is based on an initiation system with a series of degree ceremonies that use some sort of ritual drama. Now, guys, it's real. Look it up. And there are a lot of theories on why these calls were made.
I believe you.
This running way, way deeper. But again, I'm not trying to go down that path, as I'm trying to keep this video as little as conspiracy theory as possible. But there are a lot of theories as to why she made those calls. And again, this kind of just running deeper. So after those calls, she then immediately leaves the Anadarko office and went to meet her friend Jim at her apartment at approximately 3:45 p.m. At 5:01 p.m., Nichole calls Chris twice, but both calls are unanswered and she deletes the calls from her phone log. At 5:30 p.m., Chris calls Nichole.
It's the constant deleting that's really making it so freaking sketchy. Yeah, I'm practically convinced now that she is involved. I'm 100%, almost 100%, like practically, yeah, she's no question almost.
Call also goes unanswered, and she deletes it from her phone log. Now here is where things begin to get a little suspicious in my opinion. The call
Now things are getting suspicious? What the heck?
history between the two of them then seems to seem more as though they are plotting and aligning stories now that the news has officially broken, rather than just two lovers who are innocent talking about what's going on. At 11:09 p.m., and again, this was the night of the murders after Shanann has been reported as missing, there was a 51-minute phone call between the two of them, but then it was deleted from her phone. 8 minutes later, at 12:09 a.m., Chris calls Nichole back for another 31 minutes. Then, at 1:12 a.m., Nichole calls Chris back again, and they talk for 3 minutes. Then at 1:51 a.m., Chris calls Nichole again. They talk for another 8 minutes. So why are they going back and forth so much and calling each other? It feels like something's off, almost as though they're saying, yeah, they're talking about something, and then they're like, okay, yeah, like, let me do this really quick, or let me look at this, I'll call you right back, hang up, call you, hey, so here's what I'm thinking, hey, I'm calling you, because why would they call back and forth like 4 or 5 times rather than just have one consistent conversation? Something just feels off. Now here comes the critical phone exchange that leads me to believe that Nichole was involved somehow or knew more than she was letting on. After that exchange of phone calls, at 1:58 a.m., Chris and the detective play phone tag, and the detective says, and this is all in the discovery, that every time he tried to call and connect to Chris's phone, his personal phone would have dead air on his line. So then Chris would call him back, there would be dead air. He'd call Chris back, there would be dead air. Like something just wasn't connecting. So this goes on for nearly 10 minutes. Then Chris takes a break in calling the detective back for just 1 minute, and he calls Nichole. Why take a break to call Nichole when you and the detective are clearly trying to connect?
Probably to warn her that the detective's on to him. More than likely.
So he calls Nichole quickly from that same phone, from his personal phone, and they talk for less than 1 minute. Then 1 minute later, at 2:07 a.m., Chris calls the detective back, but this time he calls from his work phone, not his personal phone. And at that exact same time that he called the detective, Nichole calls Chris's personal phone. That call on the personal phone and the phone on Chris's work phone with the detective both lasted for 11 minutes, and it was the final call between Chris and Nichole. Now, it's suspected
Because he wanted Nichole to listen in on it so she could probably get an idea of what she needs to do to try to stay out of it now. And they both lasted for the same exact time. You'd almost have to be crazy not to believe she didn't have nothing to do with it. She 100% had something. There was something here, without question. That's fucking crazy, man. Too many coincidences, if that's the case. Too effing many coincidences.
And this is outlined in the discovery, that the dead air between the phone calls from the detective and Chris was really Chris trying to add Nichole in as a listener to the call, like a three-way call, and that it wasn't connecting, which is why he then quickly called Nichole for 1 minute or less to tell her that it wasn't working and that he was going to let her listen on speaker instead. So he hangs up with her and then calls the detective from his work phone 1 minute later. She calls his personal phone at the same time to listen to the conversation on speaker. The phone call log is all outlined in the discovery, guys. I am not making this up. Do we know that she listened to their conversation for a fact? No, which is probably why nothing could be used, because a lot of this is still just circumstantial evidence. But what else could have been the reason for him to have her on his personal phone simultaneously while he's talking to the detective on his work phone, and both for the exact same amount of time? In addition to the deleted calls on Nichole's phone, there were hours worth of searches for Shanann Watts. And after the murders, Nichole deleted every single search. So
sounds like to me she was trying to keep updated on the whole thing until they found their bodies. Yeah. And she's playing innocent quite a bit, which is the alarming part. That's probably the reason why I think a lot of people are just not on her side, because, yeah, she's kind of making up all of these different things. Well, I wasn't really sure. I decided, I wanted him to keep his space, and here she is trying to stay, like, all these different search things, just trying to be involved. It's crazy.
Did she delete them because she wanted to look like she truly did write Chris off and didn't care about anything pertaining to him? Why delete them if you're just curious about updates in the case and have nothing to hide, especially if you're trying to act so forthcoming to police? Nichole also tried to destroy her SIM card before she gave her phone to investigators. She also deleted texts and photos of Chris and her, as well as her total search history. A search history which shows her looking to see if the cops could be able to trace those text messages, read deleted text messages, and how long phone companies stored text messages for. And one of the biggest things that doesn't sit right with me in all of this case is how Nichole plays both the victim and also the martyr. For the victim role, at first she tells detectives that Chris told her that he and Shanann were separated and that they were in the process of divorcing, that she had no idea they were still married and had a baby on the way. Yet if she truly did think this, then why would she be Googling things like, "Man I'm having an affair with says he will leave his wife," a search that she made on July 24th. If you thought that they were in fact separated or mutually divorcing, you wouldn't be using the word affair and you wouldn't be using the word mistress. Not to mention that Father's Day post that we discussed earlier that certainly would have informed her that they were not separated. No one looking at Shanann's Facebook page would ever be under the impression that she was nearing the end of a mutual divorce, as Nichole claimed to believe. Now sure, being the other woman hardly implicates you in murder. But if you're lying about what you understood his marriage status to be, when there are several things to prove otherwise, you have to ask why. Aside from the shame of being the mistress, why would you lie so blatantly about those things? Then, as for the martyr role, she told detectives that ultimately she encouraged Chris to work things out with his family right before he took that trip to North Carolina.
So, but then being in a house, it was just like, why? Fix this. Find a way to fix this. Make it work, and I was like trying to push him to do it, and he seemed pretty reluctant.
Yeah, but everything shows that you probably would not have been that pushy to fix things. It sounds like to me you were really wanting to be with this guy. And honestly, probably had something to do with pushing him to murder his wife and children so that you could be together. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, nothing she says makes any sense, because everything that's like in her search history kind of tells me otherwise of what she was thinking. Like the wedding dresses, can cops trace my number or trace my messages or bring back my messages, and just crazy shit you should not be messaging unless you were trying to hide what you were doing.
To do it, he didn't want to, and I don't know, we were still seeing each other fairly frequently, but I kind of backed away so we weren't hanging out quite as much, and we were still close. It just seemed like he had so much going on, and it was just beautiful that I was like, why don't you just try this out, you know, and see if you can fix it. And he'd always be like, well, what about us? What about us? I'm like, don't worry about us. Like, that is more important. Like, try to see if you can, like, salvage whatever it is that you have going on with your wife. And you know, I always got the impression that he was a great father to his kids, like, always. And so, you know, I was like, and be the dad that you want to be. I was like, and see if you can make it work.
And then she says that he told her that he was going to go to North Carolina and try to work on his marriage and give it another shot. So she says he was going to give it another shot. I encouraged him to do so, so then I decided to give him space to do that, trying to look like she's the bigger person, saying, I really wanted him to try to fix his family, fix his marriage. He said he would go to North Carolina and try, so I gave him the space to do that.
And then he told me that, he went to North Carolina, and he was like, I'm going to talk to her when I'm in North Carolina and see if I can get her to do this, to, like, try to, like, rekindle the flame.
Now, if this were true, guys, why would she be Googling things like marrying your mistress and spending over 2 hours looking at wedding dresses?
Kind of sounds like to me she might have thought, or sounds like to me they had a conversation probably talking about how he might have was going to try to divorce her or something like that and just leave her at that point. And she's trying to cover it up by saying that he was going over there to make sure that, you know, we could rekindle the flame, and she was being encouraging, trying to act like she's the savior of the situation, saying I was, you know, trying to push him to save his marriage instead of trying to be with me. I think that's more important than being with me. But then, yeah, she's looking up shit like this, and yeah.
She Googled those things on the 4th of August and the 8th of August, while Chris was in North Carolina, and according to her, she was giving him space to try and fix the marriage.
No, I personally think that she was, like, they probably were talking about how he was going over there to probably break things up with Shanann, and so they could be together or whatnot, or talking about the murder, or you know, trying to do something along those lines. And that's why she was looking up all this shit, because she was probably excited for the big news, like, oh yay, now I get to marry the guy I want, something like that. Like, it makes no sense why you would do that. It makes no fucking sense. And then deleting the messages.
If you're giving him space to try to fix the marriage and
I don't even know what to
encouraging him
say.
to fix the marriage, then why, and he's telling you he's going to fix the marriage, then why are you looking up wedding dresses? Why are you Googling marrying your mistress? It doesn't make sense. And I firmly believe that she knew from day one that Chris was married and that she was the mistress and that was her role. I don't think she ever thought that they were in the process of separating or that they were ever going to try to fix the marriage.
Nope.
Now, in another interesting piece of information, Chris eventually told law enforcement that he tried to first subdue Shanann with OxyContin, and the police weren't able to ever establish how he got the OxyContin, as it was never prescribed to him. And he told them that where the OxyContin came from is a secret that he will take to the grave. Now, call logs show that Nichole was once on the phone with Chris, then on the phone with a clinic, then on the phone with Chris again. And when transcripts were pulled from that clinic she called, it showed that she was inquiring about how much OxyContin would be safe to take and how much would cause a miscarriage. Interesting. Now, maybe this doesn't indicate that she was involved in the murder itself, but to me, it does prove that she knew that Shanann was pregnant before that newspaper and before the interview, whereas before, she said she had absolutely no idea.
It's so crazy, because all this information you would think would have somebody behind bars at this point, like being questioned insanely, and she was questioned. But, like, this is how is she even, like, on the streets still? How is she, like, not being, okay, because I'm assuming this case was dropped and people would just want to see it come back. Dude, this is, like, next level shit right here. What are the chances? What are the coincidences in that? He got OxyContin, and then there she is fucking looking up information for him.
Until it was all over the news. It is also suspected that while in North Carolina, after Chris joined his family there, that he may have tried to secretly give Shanann that drug to induce a miscarriage, because Shanann became very ill one day and was complaining of severe cramps. So one theory out there is that Nichole and Chris had hoped to induce a miscarriage so that he could then divorce her easier. But then when that didn't work, the plan was escalated. So when Chris came back from North Carolina, he and Nichole picked up right where they left off. And then on August 12th, they went on that infamous date to the Lazy Dog where everything really blew up because Shanann saw the charge for dinner on the credit card statement and knew that the total bill was more than it would cost for just one person. But before hitting the town to get something to eat, Nichole spent 45 minutes Googling how to prepare for butt sex and the butt sex guide. And this was in addition to looking at videos of threesomes on certain sites and searching double penetration. Now we have to talk about the footage and people suspecting that Nichole was there that night and actually helped Chris. Although it is just speculation, so many people have been talking about this for years. So I felt like I did need to touch on it briefly in this video. As people analyze the footage from the neighbor's camera, many strongly believe that Nichole can be seen in this footage. So let me just show you a quick glimpse of this.
Hey guys, I didn't want to do another Chris Watts video, but I felt that this was really important. I saw this in a Facebook group and it comes from the surveillance of the neighbor's house that morning. If you look at the picture on the right, you can see that that person seems to have breasts. Also, they seem to have long hair. Here is another photo. It's not very clear, but here is an outline of that photo. It shows a purse on the back of that person. Looks familiar.
Let me play that for you one more time.
Hey guys, I didn't want to do another Chris Watts video, but I felt that
That makes me sick. That makes me sick.
this was really important. I saw this in a Facebook group and it comes from the surveillance of the neighbor's house that morning. If you look at the picture on the right, you can see that that person seems to have breasts. Also, they seem to have long hair. Here is another photo. It's not very clear, but here is an outline of that photo. It shows a purse on the back of that person. Looks familiar.
Now, if this is true, it would certainly align with Nichole's phone pinging near the Watts home that morning. It would also explain why she never clocked into work and why she didn't have an alibi for that morning. So on August 19th, the day after this police interview, Nichole starts to Google all about Amber Frey, who Amber was the mistress to Scott Peterson, who was also convicted of killing his wife and unborn child. And Nichole was Googling if people hate Amber, how much money Amber made from the book deal she got, among other things. So it's my belief that at this point, she realized that she and Chris were not going to get away with this and live happily ever after together. So she was then wondering how she could benefit from the situation and really make the most of it for herself. Nichole has never been charged or formally named as a person of interest, although so many people in the public arena firmly believe that she was involved in this to some degree. Based on everything we have learned about this case so far, what is your opinion? I'm really curious to know. Do you think that she was more involved or knew more than she's letting on? Or do you think that she really was the innocent mistress in all of this and Chris Watts played her and she was blindsided? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Again, I'm making a promise to myself that this is my last trip to Watts Island.
Okay, I'll just say this, and that was a phenomenal video. You did a lot of research, and I gotta really congratulate you for that. That was fantastic. I'm not 100% familiar with the entire case. I do know about Chris Watts and him killing his family and whatnot, but yeah, this is all very much new to me. Does add a lot of story to the body language video I watched. This is some upsetting shit, man. This really made my stomach upset, dude. Just looking at the picture of them on the. How is this woman as free as she is right now? How is she able? Like, the shit she was looking up should almost say everything right there and then. It's almost mind-blowing that she's not, like, in questioning right now. If she is. Like, I'm not even sure if she is or not. Is she not in questioning? I don't know what to say. I didn't think there was this much evidence on her.
And I highly doubt new information is going to surface, but if it does, maybe I'll rethink that. But this case, I mean, I just am trying to stay away from it because it can become a circus very quickly, and there are just so many conspiracy theories out there. But I am really curious to know what your thoughts are. I still firmly believe, at the very least, that she knew. something was going to happen.
Yeah, she
or
did.
That this
She
was
did.
the plan. Because if she didn't, why else would she listen in on that phone call between him and the detective unless it was trying to assess what the detective knew, what he was saying? It makes absolutely no sense. Why would her phone ping? Why would she delete history? Why would she lie about things? Why would she say she didn't know Shanann's name when she really did? There are just way, way too many inconsistencies, in my opinion, for her not to have been involved.
Too many
now,
red flags,
all
yeah.
of those inconsistencies, even the ones that are outlined as evidence in the discovery, are circumstantial. There is enough for reasonable doubt there, which is my belief as to why she has not formally been charged. Although others speculate it's because, her dad runs deep and that could be why. Again, another conspiracy theory, possibly true, who knows. But at the end of the day, the evidence of her truly being involved in the crime itself isn't there.
Who's her dad? What's her dad do? Someone please leave a comment down below. She could have mentioned it throughout this video. I might have missed it. What does her dad do?
It's all circumstantial about her location, her knowing the site in
God,
which
that's
the
such
bodies were
bullshit.
disposed of, her listening in, everything that can't prove that she was directly tied. But I believe she was. So let me know what you guys think, and let me know what you do think. If you do think she was involved, let me know what you think her level of involvement was. I'm curious to know.
Well, at this rate, I'm going to go like a 9 out of 10. Like this rate, at least a 9 out of 10.
Did she help that night with the murders, help dispose of the bodies? Did she help with the cleanup, the cover-up? Because some suspect that she was at his house even that morning, cleaning things up and getting things in order, and that she was going to text from Shanann's phone to make it look as though Shanann had really just gone off with the girls and left Chris, but then that plan was foiled because Shanann changed her passcode, which we know was true in the body cam footage because Chris can't get into her phone. And then Shanann's friend says, it's your unborn child's birthday. And then he's like, oh, and then they get in. So people believe that that plan was foiled because they couldn't get into her phone, and that's really why her phone was left behind to begin with, where he was so careful to get rid of everything else. So again, so many theories on this case, but I'm interested to know what you think just regarding her involvement. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope that this is our last trip together to Watts Island, but I don't want to make any guarantees. All right, guys, thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the case coverage and the video. And until the next case, stay safe.
Oh my gosh, that was a lot. A lot more than I was thinking. Yeah, I'm about a 9 out of 10 on this whole thing. She had something to do with it. I mean, the fucking camera footage, security camera footage from the neighbor's house really just kind of, yeah. I mean, that was clearly not Chris, right? That was clearly not Chris who was carrying whatever it was carrying. And then the purse looking exactly like the one she was wearing in the interview. Yikes. Like, seriously, yikes. Obviously, that is not the only amount of evidence that was shown here that really just makes this whole big red flaggish situation. All the text messages being deleted, all the questions she was Googling. I mean, just seriously, I don't even know how it's possible she is not in question right now just because of all that alone, which would get anybody looked at as suspiciously as anybody should be looked at suspiciously if they had that stuff on their phone. The fact that she was kind of nervous to give the phone over to the police is also questionable. I have a lot to think about. I'm gonna actually be getting off here to head to work. I'm gonna be thinking about this when I go to work tonight. Please leave your comments down below. Give me some more information on this case. I desperately need to. If you have any recommendations for other videos that you want me to check out, I'll check them out. Do a deep dive on this case and everything. Give you guys my personal thoughts. But I'm just actually just mind blown. My mind is really numb right now just by listening to all of that stuff. Take care, guys. Have a great one. Until next time, keep it retro. Do take care.